Welcome to the 5enses podcast. I'm your host, Robert Zinni, and today I'll be talking with Democratic candidate Judy Stahl, who is going for the Arizona House seat for LD District 1. Judy has been living in the Prescott area for a number of years. She has been a licensed massage therapist, educator, and she is currently a life coach and counselor working online and in hopes to be your new representative for Arizona House LD number 1. So Judy, thank you for stopping by virtually to this podcast.
Thank you so much for having me, Robert. It's delightful to be here.
Exactly. So I was curious, how's the campaign trail going since your kickoff in January?
Thank you for asking.
Mm-hmm.
The campaign is actually going really well. We, like everyone else, have gone through a transitional phase, which continues to unfold. But, I think for us, it's actually been really quite exciting. If you kind of look at what's going on, given that I'm the only Democratic candidate running for state legislature, either from the State House or from the Senate for Legislative District 1, I am the candidate of change. As a Democrat, it's been 2 decades since we've had a Democrat in the State House from this district. So the fact that we're undergoing, all of us, great change right now is actually invigorating to me. I am the change candidate, and I like it. So in the campaign, we had all the plans set to go and had started with having house parties to have people meet me and house parties to fundraise and walking canvases around the neighborhood. And this really all had gotten going for us right around the time that it became clear that everyone needed to begin to be responsible regarding COVID-19 and physical distance, et cetera, et cetera. I'm blessed to have super volunteers and staff who are helping to transition our team to a fully virtual campaign for this foreseeable future, because we really don't know how long it's going to be before we can all sort of go out and be out and about again. It's going to be quite a while before we can all do that in any way that we have in the past. In fact, there really is no going back to where we were. So in terms of the campaign, it's incredibly exciting. I have a phenomenal team, and we had a training for call time support, which is a crucial part of a campaign, on Thursday, where we got trained by an expert, Shelly Homaker down in Tucson, a friend and a fabulous trainer, to help us to do call time, where I call people and say, hey, I'm running for office, and then call them back and say, hey, would you like to support the campaign? It can't just be me doing that. I have to have someone sitting with me doing that. You could call it hand-holding, but it's really call time support. And now we're going to be doing that virtually. So, you're on the screen, I'm on the screen. My call time support person is going to be on the screen on a Zoom call or Google Hangouts. And I will have my phone here on speaker, and my campaign call support person will be taking notes. So, it's really been quite seamless. We had a training and a text bank phone calling on Friday with one of my team, Ren Manning, they are just absolutely amazing. And we're going to be doing virtual house parties. We're going to be doing virtual meet and greets. We're going to be doing a virtual town hall, and soon we intend to have me doing Facebook Live at consistent times once a week. And we're also going to be putting together a podcast of my own.
Oh, nice.
Okay. Campaign with my wisdom. So it's really exciting. This campaign went virtual fairly quickly because I am a healthcare professional since 1978. Worked in hands-on healthcare. I'm a breast cancer survivor myself, and worked with children with cancer and their families in a major cancer ward, oncology ward at University of Iowa for 5 years. So I'm well aware of the importance of protecting those who are immunosuppressed. And when we take care of ourselves, when we wear a mask, when we physical distance, when we just stay home, we add to the overall environment of caring and protecting everyone else. So it's not that we do this to keep ourselves from getting infected. We do this with sort of a ground of being, a given. We want to just suppose that we are infected and that we do everything we can to make sure that we don't infect anyone else. So
Right.
long story long. The campaign's going great.
Good. So you said you had to go to the virtual model for this. How do you see that playing out for the next couple months? Are you getting some good feedback from people that you have been texting, or is it just starting off the ground where you're going to be doing town halls and Facebook Lives and such like that?
Well, we haven't done a town hall yet. We have not done a Facebook Live yet,
Mm-hmm.
but we have been, our team has been working virtually for weeks now. And it's actually really lovely because we can see each other. But, if somebody needs to address what's going on with their child, or, if you want to have your cat on your lap while someone else has their dog, and it's actually kind of exciting. It's kind of intimate. In terms of transitioning that out to how we're going to be addressing our supporters, my potential and future constituents, there are a number of different ways we're doing that. For instance, on April 30th, Thursday, April 30th, I am going to be speaking for the Foothills Democrats,
Okay.
who are down in the uh, Cave Creek, Carefree, North Scottsdale area. So they cover folks who are Democrats, folks who are independents, folks who want to be involved with them, who are both in my district and out of my district. So I'm going to be here at home. They're going to be down there, wherever they are, and we'll all be able to connect, and I won't have to do the driving an hour and a half, which, believe me, I love to see folks, and I've been happy to go to Anthem and Carefree and Cave Creek. But this way, I just get to speak to folks from home, and everybody's figuring out these new ways to communicate. And, if this pandemic and the resultant transformation of our lifestyles, not only in the United States, but everywhere, if this had happened 20 odd years ago, before we had access to the internet, it would have been a very different story. But
Mm-hmm.
Robert, what's happening now is that people in all over the world, but particularly, I'm very excited to say, in my district, where we have many retirees and folks who will freely admit that they're not expert on social media, they are learning social media and they are loving it. And it's making it safe for folks in my district to connect with each other so that we're not actually socially distancing. We're physically distancing. And basically, by physically distancing, staying at home, wearing a mask when we go out, we're telling each other that we love each other and that we care about each other. So it's very exciting what's going on. There are so many different ways to communicate. And in some ways, this is a great equalizer. And further, it does make it so that we can focus a lot on the data. Where are the people who are going to vote for me throughout the district? In each of the different precincts in the district, we can look and see, where are these folks? How can we best connect with them? And in some ways, I think this is actually really going to be to the advantage for someone like myself, who's in a district which is very spread out, with constituents in Seligman, constituents in Wickenburg, constituents in Cave Creek and Carefree. Right. So, yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge district. But I want to say, like, you switching from a physical and traditional campaign to what you're doing virtually, it just shows the people the flexibility of what you can bring to the table as a representative, right? Because when life hands you lemons, it seems like you're making lemonade with it right now, and you're finding new innovative ways to reach out to the people and show people that I am still here, and what I show you on the campaign trail is a guarantee of what you will expect when I'm in office. So that is great to hear, Judy. And what I wanted to focus on right now is, you've been in this district, living in Prescott for a long time. And
28 years.
28 years, right? And so you know a lot of the needs of our district and whatnot. I want to know, what's some of the biggest motivators for you to start campaigning and hoping to get elected for your district at this time period?
Great question. The biggest motivator for me, because I've never run for public office before, is that I am a concerned citizen.
Mhm.
I care about my community. I care about my district, this part of Arizona. I care about Arizona. I care about our country. I care about the world. But the fact of the matter is, this is where I live. This is where I have lived. This is where I've raised my children. I've run a business. I have volunteered, and I have been actively involved in this community for, many, many years. So this is where I get to take my stand for my American values, the values that I grew up with, which are essentially the values of the Democratic Party. But I think they're really overall American values, that we care about our neighbors, that we care even about those people who aren't in our immediate family or a part of our immediate church or our immediate clan or tribe, as you would say. We are Americans, and this is the country that you come to. Give me your tired, your poor, your huddled masses, and anyone can make it in the United States. I hope that, I know that you're a teacher at North Point Expeditionary Learning Academy, which
Yeah.
is fabulous. And I hope that young people are learning about history, are learning about civics, are learning what this country was based on, what it was founded on, and what's possible here versus in other places. My family have been in this country. My ancestors have been in this country, not since the colonial days, but since the 1800s. We have a long history of service in the military and service to our communities. And these are the things that you can do in this country that you can't necessarily do in other countries. So for me, having always been politically curious and politically active since I was a teenager, it was a natural for me as I looked around and have seen over, I'd say about the last 10 years, but certainly over the last few, that there are things coming down from the top that do not represent my American values. And I'm very committed to making sure that as a leader, and I do have leadership qualities, that as a leader, I'm willing to stand up, fear or no fear, I'm willing to stand up and speak to what I believe in and shine a light for folks who are confused about where to turn, because the political waters in this country have been changing. A political party that my family have been members of for forever is not the party that my grandfathers were a part of in terms of the leadership that we're seeing. And even in this district, there have been things that have gone on in recent years and congressionally that that don't reflect my values. And so my intention is to be the common ground candidate. My hashtag is Stahl for All. And the voices of myself and people like myself have been less and less represented in recent years. And even representatives who have a different party affiliation from me, they haven't necessarily been able or willing to stand up to the powers that be in their party and say, look, I'm not going to go for that. And that's not me. Robert, when I grew up, I was born in Chicago. I grew up in the suburbs of New York City. And when I was in high school, we moved to rural Michigan. And I lived in rural Michigan, rural Illinois, and rural Iowa for how many years? 10 years during that time. So lived in the suburbs. I've lived in rural. And I'll tell you, when I was a teenager in high school, I went to 3 different high schools in 3 different states. I learned a lot about human behavior, human nature, social structure. And frankly, I see some of that today in terms of politics. I've heard people talk about some of the politically active folks around here. They've described some of them as acting like the mean girls. And, that's something about me. I've lived places where I had to be starting from scratch. In New York, I had older sisters. I waltzed in on a red carpet. When I moved to Michigan, I was on my own, and it was a start, and it was humbling. And you begin to learn the kind of insecurities that people have. And sadly, we still see that in politics today. I am uninterested in that. I have compassion and an expansive nature and ability to embrace everyone, whatever their insecurities. And I will have a civil conversation with anyone, because what I'm interested in doing is getting things done.
And I appreciate that because when you talk about Mean Girls, I've noticed that on both sides of the aisle because, they're, but if I am talking as a concerned citizen or a voter, I vote for that. I want leadership that get things done, not to stall anything, not to do anything. It's like to get things done. And what I want to, if you could elaborate on like insecurities, I think that's a very interesting point that you brought up because I see that some leaders are afraid or not willing to talk about their insecurities or their weaknesses. So, if there's anything that you want to tell your constituents in LD1, what would it be about you? And
In terms of weaknesses,
well, I want you to talk about insecurities, but
oh
then
yeah,
you can expand
insecurities.
on to anything
Sure,
else. But I thought
sure.
you brought a really good point up about the insecurities because you never
Yeah,
really hear that in politics.
yeah. No, I mean, I'm a first time candidate
Right.
for public office. I have, however, been the president of my national association, which now has close to 100,000 members, the American Massage Therapy Association. So I have run campaigns before. However, those campaigns were where it was massage therapists from across the country who were electing me. There's a very different group than the public as a whole. Even though we're a great part of that and we represent the breadth, it's different than representing everybody. So I, in terms of insecurities, I would say that it has to do with just the fact that I'm a first time candidate. Because the fact of the matter is, I spent 7 years working on an initiative to create a state law in Arizona, which is why I'm running for state house as my first attempt to run for public office. Like, why don't I run for Prescott City Council, or why didn't I run for County Board of Supervisors? Well, I have experience at the state house and was able to be the prime mover on a successful campaign to create a division of government where we now have over 10,000 licensed massage therapists in Arizona, and people can receive that kind of excellent health care with knowing that there's oversight, knowing that there is protections for them in that environment.
I want to know, what does it mean to be a common ground candidate, Judy?
Great question. Living in Prescott for 28 years, raising my family here, sending my children to PUSD schools, volunteering in this community on many different levels, running a business. I have interacted with thousands and thousands of people uh, personally, individually. Obviously, as a massage therapist, I'm putting my hands on people. So you know that they trust me. You
Mhm.
know that I know how to connect with people. And so that's the first thing, is that common ground. I will have a civil conversation with anyone. I care about people. Um, this community and this district are there's a significant difference in the number of registered voters between the different parties. And I've been a Democrat my whole life. I have family who are Republicans, but I've been a Democrat my whole life. I think I was a Green for a few months there sometime when I wanted to elect someone. But as much as my values are strongly held, I am absolutely committed to people and to making sure that people are well and uplifted and have the resources they need and are heard and are respected. So, I know all kinds of Republicans around here who are going to vote for me in the general. It's the only way, frankly, that I will win, is if people from all sides of the political spectrum realize that I'm a person who can represent them fairly and respectfully and strongly and forcefully, and impress upon people that I am a person who can get these things done. As I said, I'm the first Democrat. When elected, I will be the first Democrat elected to the state house in 20 years from this district. So there's a bit of an imbalance that's been going on, and we see that at the state legislature as well, that at this point in time, Democrats have no say in how the budget is rolled out. If the Republicans want to listen and take in some of their views, they can, but doesn't always happen. And I'd like to see there be more balance in the representation from this district, and that we're really looking at what needs to happen for public education, for healthcare, for the values that I have held my whole life. Now, there are folks who are going to disagree with me on things, just as I disagree with other elected representatives on some things. But overall, what people can know is that I will listen to what they have to say, I will consider it, and I will move forward when elected, willing to take the responsibility, willing to have the buck stop here. I'm not going to say I'm not responsible for that, for whatever it is that goes on. And I will work with anybody to get things done. So while I have passionate views, I can't be at either extreme, and I'm not interested in being at either extreme. I'm interested in bringing people together, creating unity, and creating working groups and a vision that allows us to move forward as a district and as a state and as a nation.
Excellent response, Judy. I mean, you definitely touched on a lot of things. And again, it's like, if you take away the R and the D from that political candidate, it'll show that a district, no matter where it is in America, they want people that will get things done. I think you touched upon the progress, because we can, live like it's 1776 here, but technology has changed, society has changed, industry has changed. And my fear of living in this district is, in the 21st century, we're seeing that a lot of new innovations are happening and a lot of new industry is happening. I mean, I'm more afraid of robots taking people's jobs than immigrants taking people's jobs. And so it's nice to hear that you want to change with the times, because again, if we want to hold on to those old values, or like those old, I guess, ways of life, that's cool, but like, you're missing out on a lot of different things, and especially with education, public health. To piggyback on my last question is, how do you suggest as citizens we approach that common ground philosophy in America on our day-to-day lives?
Thank you for that question. I think that it matters to me when we are out in the community, BC, before coronavirus, that, if I was going into a store and, I was getting a door, I might hold that door for someone. And you know what? It always felt nice if that person would then turn to me and say, thank you. It starts in the most basic, small ways, offering people a cheerful smile, being willing to be the one who reaches out first and says hello. Also, that means allowing people to be where they are. It's very easy in our heads to assume things about other people. It's really important to learn to let go of ego, let go of all of the little voices in the head that say, well, she didn't say hello to me, so, I'm upset. Nothing like that. Letting people be where they are, having compassion for ourselves and compassion for others, being kind to each other, caring about each other, reaching out, being the one who reaches out first, being the one who leads on things that might not have been what the in crowd wanted to do. Like, you hear about folks down in Florida who were out on the beaches. And actually, I just saw a picture on social media where someone in our district was going out to go hiking. And there were a bunch of people standing around by the pay station, where apparently you didn't have to pay anyway, because there have been some generous moves to allow us to go out and not have to be putting our hands and envelopes and any virus that might be floating around onto these items. They were standing around by the pay station chatting. Now, I understand being young. When I was young, I thought I would live forever, and I was very self-involved. And I tried to be generous, but I was who I was, and so I get it that young people are doing what they want to do. This is a time when we have to begin to care more about other people than maybe we've ever had to before, people who we know and people who we don't know. So in this district, people were congregating, and these people who were writing about this said that they couldn't go on their hike. They didn't want to be near that crowd that might be super spreaders. So important to just start with being considerate of other people. And you know, I've worked in healthcare a long time. I have a master's degree in counseling psychology. I have worked hands-on with people since 1978 and really had an opportunity to create uh, intimate professional relationships where people really share their heart and soul with me and know that it's safe to do so, that I'm not going to go out talking about it and I'm not going to judge them. And, you know, most everyone is wounded. We all have our own wounds. So the more that we can sort of step back with a little bit of grace, a little bit of humility, and realize that everyone has a challenge that I don't necessarily see, then I think we can move forward. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well, it's common ground. Yes, for the coronavirus, this is exactly what it has to happen. And I want to comment because I think I was at the same trailhead. So I got up yesterday at 6 o'clock in the morning to go run my 7 or 8 miles that I do with my friend. And as we're walking down where Metate is to back to, I think it was right before the lake or the whatever. And I'm just like, whoa, how inconsiderate is it? Because there's like at least 20 people in the parking lot. And so the funny thing is that we went to our separate cars and I was taking off my shirt to put a clean shirt on. And one of them was a former student of mine, and they literally go into my bubble, and I must have made a face, and they're like, "Are you not contacting?" And I laugh. I'm like, "Yeah, man. Like, I don't like. I love you, but like, please get away from me. Like, I can't like do this."
That was really, I'm sorry, that was really the phrase that they said. Are you not contacting?
Yep. Mm-hmm.
Well, see, this is it. People create nomenclature, people create lingo. That's how the world is. And, you know, physical distancing is a great way to say it versus social distancing. But even this contacting thing, it's like, you know what? No, I'm not contacting because it's almost like we have to go to hive mind. We have to be group mind. We've been physical distancing in this household. I certainly have for weeks now, for weeks. And I do it so that we all get a sense of it. The more people that are out and about on the street, the more people think, oh, well, they're doing it, so I'm going to do it. It's like my mother used to say when I was a kid. Oh, so if Melissa jumped over Niagara Falls in a barrel, you would too. And I learned that lesson well. And, you know, so leadership in our own lives is the thing that's going to help us all move forward, and realizing we can't look to others and say, yeah, I'm going to be with that group. You know, that's what happens with bullies. People are afraid. People are people. People are, you know, human nature. So they're afraid. They get into a crowd, somebody's a bully, and they want to hang out behind that bully so that they can be safe and protected. We each need to be a leader in our own lives. And that way we won't need or tolerate any bullies. So there's a lot of education that needs to go on for folks. Again, I've been in healthcare. I'm a breast cancer survivor. I've worked with children who had zero immune system and was committed to making sure that they lived, and many of them did. For people who don't have that background, it's a matter of education. Mm-hmm. And so the more that we can do that in a cheerful and uplifting way, in a forgiving way, in a way that sort of makes light of things, gives them a little joke, somehow helps them to see it from a perspective where they don't feel like they're being judged for not contact, you know, that you're not contacting, but where they can see the importance and then grow from that. That's up to all of us to do, as far as I'm concerned, you know, concerned citizens.
No, I agree. And first, I want to say I appreciate your work in the healthcare field, especially with pediatric cancer patients, because I don't know if you knew that, but I'm a fellow cancer survivor, leukemia at age 11.
Get out!
Yep. And I
did not know that. You are phenomenal. You're my favorite person.
Too. Yeah, right?
Oh my gosh.
So briefly, I know I don't want to take this away, but just to give you some context, I understand completely what you're saying, is because I had chemotherapy for about 2.5 years at Roswell Park in Buffalo, New York. And the first summer I had the Metaport, that got infected. Okay. So then I was already like in a self-quarantine area, right? And so at 11, I see these people coming in with masks and all the hazmat suits, right? But then on top of that, I had shingles that whole summer. So
oh my gosh.
like, I not only understand what people like you have done for kids, and I love that. And at some point in my life, I want to give back to that community. But also, I think a lot of people don't know what it feels like to actually be sick or be in isolation with like you said, zero immune systems. Because even though I go out and do my running, I'm trying to do it at like early in the morning, late at night, so nobody's in the trail
Around.
system. But again, like if I have to go to the store, I'm going to wear a mask because I don't want to spread it to an older person or a person that has a weak immune system, because you don't know who has those symptoms, or you don't know who has weak immune systems or autoimmune compromised. And, you just have to be aware of that. So thank you for that. And I totally understand. And again, it comes to education, it comes to education.
When we were working on the Arizona State Board of Massage Therapy creation, we, of course, were dealing with, here I am a Democrat, but it was an issue-based campaign. We, of course, were dealing with folks on both sides of the aisle. And one thing that was important for us to realize is that when we were meeting with legislators, acting in, as a citizen lobbyist, um, what I realized is that they weren't they weren't snickering at massage because of anything wrong with massage therapy. They were unaware of massage therapy and the benefits of it. Right now there's a huge study being undertaken for massage therapy for opioid addicted veterans, and the money that we have invested as members of the AMTA is what went to the funding the grant that's ongoing right now. When we were working with these legislators, I realized that what we were doing was educating them, because guess what? Their constituents were already using massage therapy services. They were the ones, in many cases, who weren't aware of it. And they were grateful that we educated them as to the health benefits of massage therapy across the board. And that is, I think, the thing that is so important, is to realize that in many, many cases, it's just that people are unaware. And when they learn what something is really about, they're grateful to have learned, because then, for instance, with the legislators, they were then informed legislators. And legislators are busy people, just like doctors. And they don't have a lot of time, time they don't have. So when you come to a legislator, like when you guys come to me after I'm elected, it will be easier for me if I hear from a group of people, like the folks who are working for making sure that our education is funded. They have they are organized, and they are able to come forward and say, here's what's going on. If one person comes and says, well, Representative Stahl, I would like you to do this, and someone else says, no, I think you should do that, you're going to hear that. But the more that people have had those conversations before they come to the legislator, and they can come with their group and say, we've dealt with this problem, this problem, this problem, the easier it is for that legislator to get on board and help to move forward a particular initiative. So education, is the name of the game, and helping people to see that in a way where we're not judging people for being where they are. You gotta crawl before you can walk. You gotta walk before you can run.
That's a great analogy, Judy, and perfect segue, because like I was telling you earlier before the podcast, I'm developing this game. So when we do have candidates coming on this year to just talk about themselves and let our community know who our candidates are, as a civics teacher, I have created this hashtag standardized test game, where this is where my cynicism comes into play when it comes to education. So question one: what was one important thing Abraham Lincoln did? A, lead the U.S. during the Civil War. B, lead the U.S. during the War of 1812. C, led the United States during the American Revolution. Or D, led the U.S. during the Mexican-American War.
That answer would be Abraham Lincoln led the United States during the Civil War.
Correct. I think you'll like this one. What did Susan B. Anthony do? A, founded the Red Cross. B, fought for women's rights. C, made the first American flag. Or D, established a college for women.
Well, I know that Susan B. Anthony fought for women's rights.
Mhm.
And, she may have done some of those other things too. I'm not really sure. But she certainly is a woman among women. And I'm so grateful that with the internet, that there are more opportunities for people to look up and find out about historical figures. When I was a kid, we had a traveling salesman who came to the door, and my parents bought two different, like, Encyclopedia Britannica and another encyclopedia, right? And I used to sit at, and just like pick out, like, maybe one was just for the letter C, and pull that out and start reading about the Canary Islands, or the Constitution, or whatever. On the internet, at our fingertips, right here at home, as we are staying at home and sheltering in place and flattening the curve, we can, at our fingertips, look up any of this. Now, that can be overwhelming, but furthermore, more exciting than that is we can look anyone up, and then we have to be judicious and use our discernment in what we're reading. We need to really research our sources and make sure that they are credible. But yes, Susan B. Anthony, a hero among women.
I like that. That's a really good. That's a really good saying, because I totally believe that as well.
Well, and I
Um,
just want to break in again and say something else. I mean, in Arizona, if you look at our district, Charlotte Hall, the Charlotte Hall Museum in Prescott, celebrates a woman who was a pioneer and a leader here, and I believe the first woman elected to the state legislature in Arizona, although don't put that on a civics test for me. And then, of course, we have Sandra Day O'Connor, the
right.
very first female Supreme Court justice in the United States.
Mhm.
Now, what we need to do is make sure that as soon as possible, we elect a woman president of the United States.
Sooner than later, hopefully, and to comment more about just how women are being involved on the government level, we have two senators, Martha McSally and Krista Sinema, that are our state representative or state senators for Arizona. So I thought that is really cool too, having two females in office representing us
Yeah,
in the Senate.
Arizona actually, sorry, I got a little itch on my nose. Arizona actually has a very decent history of women in leadership, and that's continuing to improve, because Arizona has quite a bit, an independent streak, and that goes for the women too, and I like that.
All right, two more questions.
Okay.
Okay. Next question is, what stops one branch of government from becoming too powerful? A, the military, B, the Bill of Rights, C, checks and balances, or D, the Federal Reserve?
Well, there are three branches of government at the federal level: the executive, the legislative, and the judicial. And the legislative branch is tasked with creating laws. The judicial branch is tasked with interpreting those laws. And the executive branch is tasked with making sure that those laws are enforced. So it would be checks and balances. And, we've seen some great challenges to our system of checks and balances at the federal level in recent years. And it's very important that your students and that everyone who cares about America and our system of government learns the importance of checks and balances, which shows you, Robert, the importance of people engaging in the democratic process and voting. There's been a lot of cynicism in our country for a lot of years. Oh, it's all rigged, or we the people really can't make a difference. Well, what we are discovering is that we the people are the only ones who can make that difference. But we have to work together. We've got to realize the power and value of the individual American voter. And we have to let go of our disappointment, our despair about what hasn't worked so far, and about the fact that human nature includes people who are out to get whatever they can for themselves and to manipulate and to take advantage. The only way to overcome that is for citizens to be educated and citizens to feel inspired and hopeful that when they vote, when they engage in the political process, in their civic duty, being an American citizen with voting rights is a great gift in 2020. That when we do that, that it makes a difference. I'm doing everything I can as a candidate for public office to show that I am 100% on board, both feet in, diving in to faith and belief in our system of government, this great experiment of democracy. And I'm unwilling to give up on it. And gratefully for us, lucky for us, we've had lots of problems in the past. At this point in 2020, some of the greatest things that have ever happened are happening, and some really, really disturbing, really concerning things have also been happening. So if what that does is it fires you up and you get active, then good for you. If it fires you up, but instead what you do is decide that you're going to be cynical and you're just going to complain and you're going to step away and act like you're above or outside of the fray, then I ask you to reconsider as a citizen, because we need every single one. Just as in this district, I need every single Democrat, who many of whom feel like they've never had anyone actually representing them in the state house in Arizona. I need every single one of you to get out and help me get elected, vote for me. We have a strategy which will allow us to win, because as it turns out, I am the only Democrat running for state house. Even though there are 2 seats, I am the only Democrat. So we are going to be promoting in my campaign our single shot strategy, which means, just like people will remember when Kathy Rusing was elected to the city council last year by an overwhelming majority, by a mandate from citizens of Prescott, people said, vote only for Kathy and leave the other votes blank. That's what people are going to have to do if I'm going to get elected in this district. You must, even if you like a different candidate who ends up on the ballot with me, because of the numbers in this district, if they're on the ballot and you like them, they're probably going to get elected. So please leave that seat blank, vote only for me, and that will be like me getting 2 votes. And that's the only way that I'll get elected. But if I do, then you'll see that your vote really counts. So I need everyone to let go of the despair, let go of the exhaustion. I have compassion for that, but let it go. Get involved on my campaign, get involved in the political process in whatever way. I respect anyone who gets involved in the political process, but get involved with me and help me to win so that we can be represented at the legislature.
Our last question before we go into a couple different questions. We talked a lot about voting, and this question is, how old do citizens have to be to vote for president or in any other campaign? A, starting at 16 years old or older. B, starting at 18 years of age or older. C, starting at 21 years of age or older. Or D, starting at 35 years of age or older. So please, Judy, if people wanted to go to support you, how old do they have to be to vote?
In order to vote in an actual election in the United States, you need to be at least 18 years old.
Mm-hmm.
However, in Arizona, at the very least, if you are 17 years old right now, and you will be 18 before the general election on November 3rd, you can register to vote right now. And I encourage you to do so, because I want to ask for your vote. Back in the day, the voting age was 21.
Yeah.
And I do believe that it was changed, if I'm not mistaken, during the time of the Vietnam War.
Yep.
So in the 1970s, early 70s, late 60s, where they realized, if we're going to ask an 18-year-old to go to war and basically give up his or her life for their country, they ought to be able to have a vote on how things are run. So, this country is a living thing. We change our laws as it becomes more clear what makes more sense, as we become more enlightened and learn more. I know that there's discussion now of changing the voting age to 16. Now, I think that some people might find that very concerning, But I'll be honest with you, if we have students who are studying civics, if we have students who are getting an excellent public education, I think it's possible that many of them would be ready at age 16. Nevertheless, currently the age is 18, and all you 17-year-olds in my district, please get yourselves registered. I think you can go to servicearizona.org or .com, and it has to do with the motor vehicle department, but you can get yourself registered, as can people who are new to Arizona. You can change your registration or confirm your registration, I believe, at servicearizona.org or .com.
Yeah, I'll provide a link in the description for everybody can go sign up to vote for. Our county recorder's office with Leslie Hoffman, she does a really great job. We have her come in every year, and I believe they go into every senior school, and they get them registered to vote, and they go through a whole history of voting history and the process of voting. And I think you're right. I think when you give students who care about society the option or the opportunity, they always, in my experience, rise to the occasion. And I think if we did able to lower the age to 16, we'll see a lot more of them voting.
In my household, we were urged to question, to find out what's going on, not to just take things like yes, sir. Not that I don't appreciate people being able to follow orders and follow directions and be respectful, but we were encouraged to be independent thinkers, and that is what I want to see for American citizens. The more that we realize that the gifts of freedom that we have in this country are only going to be kept if we get out and vote and make sure that they are there, then we can make the difference that's out there. I've seen that from a lot of sort of folks on the left or on the more liberal or more progressive side, is sort of a lack of recognition, if you will, or less of a recognition of the power of your vote than what we've seen on the other side. So, all the young people in the country, they need to get out, they need to vote. And I hope that what's gone on in this country in the last few years has lit the fire for them to understand the power. My understanding is that if the millennial generation, if they all voted, they are the largest voting bloc in this country today. If they all voted, they would be determining the future of this country. Women are a larger voting bloc in this country than men are. If women voted based on what was going to work for women and families and education and healthcare and all of that, then women would be the largest voting bloc deciding what happens in this country. We are all just individual voters, but the more that we find the people who are working on the same things we are, the more we can make a difference in our country politically.
No, I agree. And, being a millennial, right? Sometimes I don't feel like I even have the characteristics of a millennial, because I feel like as a teacher, I'm always organized and with creative projects. And, I volunteered for a campaign a couple of years ago and whatnot. But, it is a thing. Like, if young people went out and voted, whatever candidate they want to choose, I agree with you that it could sway the different election,
I think the most important thing for young people to know today is that we adults are not as different from you as you might assume. There are definitely people who are in adult bodies who don't behave like adults, who are really not mature adults. When I was young, I thought, these are adults. They know what's going on. They have some answers, and I can learn from them. And then I became an adult and realized, oh my gosh, I don't have all the answers. And I know that a lot of these people who are my age and older do not have all the answers. So we're really not as different as that. And if people try and come across to you as a young person, if adults try to come across to you like, I'm an adult, so you need to listen to me, that's not how I was raised. I want to be respectful and courteous to everyone, especially if they are towards me. But I'm not necessarily going to believe that that they know something that I don't, unless they show that to me. And so, use your discernment. On the other hand, if you think just because someone's old, they can't understand you, um, maybe that's true in some cases, but in most cases it's not. Because we all were where you were, even if it was different generationally, even if it was different if we didn't have the internet growing up. We were where you are. Young people, you have things to learn from us, from our wisdom. I'm 60 years old. We had a big celebration on my 60th birthday in January, our kickoff party. It was greatly successful. I'm happy to be 60 years old. It doesn't mean that I don't care about or understand a lot of issues that are going on with young people. I was a young person. I've got children. I think as a teacher, Robert, you get to stay connected. And a
Mm.
lot of adults don't necessarily do that because of where their life is going. Don't count us out, us older folks. We can relate to where you've been, and in certain environments, you'll find that we are just like you. On the other hand, for people who are older, don't disrespect these young people. They are brilliant. They are learning. They don't have all the experiences that you've had, but they bring a freshness and an insight that we can learn from as well. And I want to say, I don't like to use labels like millennials. And so I'm happy to lay it out there for you that as an adult, I know that I don't know everything. And I am going to count on, when I am elected, that I will have advisors and people from across the spectrum who can give me information. So I need to stay humble. I need to stay teachable. I need to stay open to what I can learn, because I don't know everything. And as a young person, I would ask you to step out of your comfort zone and talk to adults about things that maybe you thought, oh, they wouldn't understand because they're not young. You'd be amazed the things that older people understand, because a lot of times the things that you're going through now, they've gone through before. Even if they don't act like it, if you ask them, if they tell you the truth, they'll tell you, yep, I was right where you were. I made some of the mistakes that you feel like are mistakes that you're making now. And, let's talk about it.
No, I agree. The one thing I joke around with my students is like, you all are smoking jewels right now, but if this was like 20, 30 years ago, you're just like your parents probably smoking cigarettes in the bathroom, but it's just the different technology. Anyways, um, so I guess we'll leave this with the last question before we go, Judy. Is there any advice you would give someone looking to make a change in their local, state, or federal communities?
Thank you for the question, Robert.
Mm-hmm.
I would let folks know, and this is actually for folks of any age, but especially for young people, because you've got your whole lives ahead of you. You can make a difference. You have way more power to make a difference in our political scene, in our community, in our state, in our nation, than you realize. Do you know that when you make a call to a legislator, when you send an email to a legislator, when you sign up for request to speak, which involves a little work down at the Capitol, we're not able to do it right now in the State House, but when you vote, when you do these things, that your voice is being heard. And for the people who don't vote, their voice is not being heard. So there's some sort of ratio out there. But if I make a phone call to my senator to ask them to support a specific bill, my voice matters more than the thousands of people who did not call. So when I make that one phone call, I'm actually having the potency in my voice of 1,000 people or more. So when you step up and get active, when you have an issue that matters to you and you step up and speak to your legislators about it, guess what? They have to listen. What legislators don't want, and probably I shouldn't be telling you this because I'll probably have to deal with it when I'm elected, but that's okay. They don't want to have to spend all their time fielding calls and emails about some issue. They'd rather be able to just focus on the issue. But if their opinion is not the one that is yours, when you speak up and when you get other people to speak up and call them and ask them to vote a particular way, boy, they have to listen. They have to listen. So start now. Get comfortable with contacting elected representatives, with contacting the mayor, with contacting the county board of supervisors, with contacting anyone. You are just as important as anybody else. You're entitled to an opinion. And the more that you learn, get yourself educated, be uplifting, and be someone who's offering something, not just a complaint, but offering an alternative or a solution, that will help your decision makers. And there's huge power in that. So never discount your voice, and never think that just because it's just you making one call that it doesn't make a difference. It does.
See, that's a great pitch for your campaign, because now everybody listening will call you when you're elected and tell you all about their issues that they want you to represent and vote on. Judy, it was a pleasure talking to you. I want to give you one last opportunity to plug some of your hashtags. And I know that people can follow you on Instagram, but if you could just tell us where we can find more information about what you believe in when it comes to issues, and how we can be involved in your campaign, and if we can just follow you on this virtual tour of your 2020 Judy Stahl for AZ House seat LD1 campaign.
Yeah, let me go ahead and do that. I'll give you all kinds of information. So
Okay.
My name is Judy Stahl. I am running for Arizona State House of Representatives for Legislative District 1. I'm thrilled to be running. You can learn more about me at my website at judystahl.com. That is JUDYSTAHL.com. My hashtag is #Stall for All. You can put that out anywhere on social media, but on Twitter, you will find my campaign site at Judy, JUDY _Stahl, STAHL, with the @ in front. And I do use the hashtag Stall for All and Common Ground Candidate, and would love if you go and follow me and then retweet and amplify and get us connected, because that's how we're going to win. On Facebook, I have a campaign page at, it's Judy Stahl for AZ House, but if you go to facebook.com and put /Stall for All, that will show up. And I would ask you to like my campaign page and to share some of my campaign posts and comment on them, and so that we can get that amplified and things moving. We're also on Instagram, and I want you to know that this campaign is ready to meet with you. If you want to reach out on the campaign website. You can volunteer, you can subscribe to our newsletter on the website, and you can donate to this campaign. So please join this campaign, volunteer for this campaign, especially young folks. We need you. And just know that in this district, in Yavapai County, the move-in age for Yavapai County is 57 years old. So most of the people who are moving into this district are older, probably retirees. But you young people, we need to hear from you too, because if we don't have strong communities for our families with strong schools, then we're not going to end up having communities. Our communities are going to die. So we need to have young people. We need everybody. And this campaign welcomes everyone. So please come and join us, and we will win.
All right. Well, you heard it from Judy Stahl, who is the Democratic candidate for Arizona House of Representatives, LD1. You can find her on all those platforms. We'll be providing links below in the description as well. And this is just our first episode of our political series that will be following different candidates for the 2020 election. And Judy, I hope I can invite you back on probably after the primary in August, because the election you'll be heated in the election by the fall times, by the fall comes around. So I would love to talk to you, see how your campaign's doing there.
And for my friends and supporters who are currently registered Republicans, if you want to see me elected and you want to really impress that upon our district and the world, switch your registration for the primary and vote for me in the primary. Let's show folks that, no kidding, LD1 is ready for this change, and I'm going to represent all y'all. So Stahl for all. And thank you very much, Robert, for having me. I will be thrilled to come back as this campaign moves onward and upward.
Sweet. Yeah. And if anybody hasn't talked to Judy, she has a lot of passion, a lot of fire, and a lot of charisma, which I personally appreciate of somebody running for public office, because it takes a lot of courage to do that too. So again, this is the 5enses podcast with Judy Stahl. I'm Robert Zinni. And for more information, you can go to 5ensesmag.com, like us on Facebook, Instagram, and keep up to date with us when the 2020 election